All right, guys, I would like to finish a thought that I started the other day. I ended up having a live stream, and we was going to talk about some things, and I ended up having some friends come on, and we made the conversation more personal and kind of caught up, and I got to know some of my YouTube channel buddies a little better, and it was nice to get to do that. But I kind of changed my thoughts when they joined in on the conversation. So I just wanted to make a quick video and talk about what I started to talk about in that video. And that is, I think our culture and the way this society runs is really hard on most modern men. It's belittled kind of manhood and masculinity, and how men work is not being how we as men work is not being catered to in this modern society. And I'm just going to share some thoughts on this, and I'll probably be scratching the surface, but I want to bring out some thoughts. And I think it's why I do think this is a big reason why a lot of our men in this society are turning to drugs and alcohol and ways to escape, these feelings of unaccomplishment, of unsatisfaction, discontentment. Um, and I want to talk about that a little bit. I just want to kind of address some of those things. And like I said, we'll be scratching the surface for sure. We will not get everything covered in this video, but I do want to cover some of my thoughts really quick and talk about it. But, the Bible says to be sober because your adversary, the devil, is seeking whom he may devour. So I just want to throw a little bit of spiritual thoughts in this as well. And even when we look back, let's go back for the last 6,000 years. What has the men of the household, the men of the world done over the last 6,000 years for a job? And we look at that, and it's been pretty consistent for thousands of years until the last 100 years. It's changed drastically, over the last 100 years. And you didn't see the mental health decline of men and families and homes and leadership until these changes have happened. And why is that? And I want to kind of address this. And I think the main reason is that, in the 1800s here in the U.S., most of your homesteads, your leaders of a household, they were farming something. They acquired land either by acquisition or either by claiming it. They moved west to start claiming land that hadn't been claimed, and it was a lot easier to get land at that time, a lot cheaper, and a lot easier. But they created farms, and they farmed for themselves, and they basically worked for themselves. They would trade goods, and some people would create, set up in the local town, and sell their goods, or some people would create stores and run those stores. And most people were probably farmers who farmed their own food. But what was different over the last 6,000 years than the last 100 years? And I think the main thing that was different is we had ownership of our life. We had complete control over what we did in life, and we was able to make those decisions, make those calls. We was able to create missions for us to do day in, day out. We would accomplish our missions as men, and we would feel satisfied that we accomplished those things. And we could, at the end of the day, say we've conquered this goal, we've done it. And so I think that's the way it was for thousands of years as a man in a house, whether you were pretty poor or whether you were rich. It was kind of that same mentality, maybe on a larger scale or a smaller scale. But now in this corporate world where 90% of men are working for some big corporation, and you're just a number, you have tasks that you're supposed to do, but you don't get paid based off how good you do the task. You don't get paid. You don't get bonuses based off how well that you perform compared to other people in your group. You just get paid the same every day, and you get looked at as a number. And if you miss something, or you mess up, or you don't get your quota or something, you will get punished. But if you exceed that quota or you excel at your job, you don't get nothing for it. The mission, and this is the main thing I want to focus on, the mission that we have at these corporations, and even working for smaller corporations, working for small companies, little stores that sell products or services or whatever, you're still working for a boss who is bringing in the big money or controlling things, and you're told what to do. You kind of get manipulated, whether you like it or not, whether you like your job or not, you're still being manipulated in some way or another. And your mission is not their mission, and you never feel like you don't feel like you get a clear mission, number one. And men need a clear mission. We need a mission. We need a goal to conquer, and we need to feel like we conquer something, we complete something, we excel at something. We need to have firm goals and meet those goals. But these corporations and these companies we work for today, that 90% of men work for in the company, in the country, they are constantly throwing these little missions, and you never really feel like you ever finish. It's like an unending mission that you have to complete, and you go home and you feel like it's still not done. You feel like you go on the next day and it's still not done, and that's the kind of jobs we have today as men. And they cater a lot of our jobs too, in this modern age have been catered. I'm trying to be careful what I say, but they're also catered toward women and men. So, and men feel completeness. They feel validated. They feel useful, completely different than what women do. And since they cater most jobs to men and women, then men are never going to feel satisfied with the way most jobs are set up, because they're not set up to make a man feel to feel good about themselves or to feel like they're getting anywhere in life. It just there's an unending mission that never gets completed, and you're constantly trying to do it. You never feel satisfied. You never feel like you've gotten anywhere, or you've conquered anything, or you've moved to the next step. It's just a never-ending battle that's slowly eating away and burdening you down, and you never feel like you get anywhere. And that's the way our modern society and the jobs in our culture are geared. And I think that's one reason why men are struggling so much with anxiety, depression, feeling of not being validated or good enough. I know I felt that way, and I have a good job, but I still feel like a lot of times that my efforts have not been rewarded in any kind of real special way. I might get a bonus, but everybody gets a bonus. I might get this, but everybody gets this. I might get a 3% raise, but everybody gets a 3% raise. So if I do really good, I don't feel like I get anything extra for it. Or if I complete a mission, I feel like that it's just reset, and I have to recomplete that same mission over and over and over and over again. And I think that's the problem with this culture and the way, we have to do things today. Like you never feel like it's completed. You never feel like you're finished. You never feel like you get a break. You never feel like the job is over. You never feel like there's an end point. There's no clear mission. There's no clear finish to that mission. It's just a constant chaos all the time. And men are not geared for that. I think of a soldier going into battle. They go into battle to win and to finish and to do what that mission is calling them to do. And they complete it, and they feel a sense of fulfillment and completion from that. And I think that's the way jobs were 150 years ago. I feel like that's how the culture was 150 years ago. But today, it's no longer like that. Our culture does not run things that way anymore. We do not do things that way. And so men are constantly going home feeling unsatisfied, wanting an escape from this never-ending mission that feels like chaos, and they never feel like they're good enough to actually get ahead or complete it. It's just a never-ending battle of responsibility and burdens and weights that you never get paid for enough. You never get ahead. You never arrive to the end of that mission. You just constantly the same cycle of the same mission every day that burdens you down, wears you out mentally, physically, emotionally. that's another thing too. Men were really meant to do jobs that were more physical. We're not geared for emotional and mental responsibility and weights that a lot of these modern jobs put on us that weren't that way 150 years ago. 150 years ago, you go out and plow the field. Yes, it was hard work, but it was sweat, blood, and tears. And after that, you were done. You felt completed, and you didn't really have to think about it a lot. You knew what you were doing. You went out there and you had to do it. You took the time and you worked hard and you did it. But I'm sure that there was a feeling of completing those missions day in and day out, and you got to be the boss of those missions so many times. And I think today it's went from 90% of jobs were geared for men 150 years ago to only like 10% of jobs today. And most of the time, the jobs that are geared toward men aren't even the good paying jobs a lot of times. A lot of times it's the paperwork, the thinking, the emotional, mental jobs that pay good. So that's another burden in and of itself, that if you want to get paid good, you have to get a job that's is a never-ending mission. It's never ending. It's always, as soon as you get one thing done, two things get added to the mission. You never can complete the mission. So I don't know. I mean, we could go deep into this whole thing, but the whole culture is geared against the way a man runs and works. The way a man needs to be treated, the way a man needs to feel. The whole culture in this whole modern job society is dragging men down, and I think they're seeking alcohol and drugs as a way of escape from never feeling like they've accomplished anything. They feel a void, and don't get me wrong, I know there's a religious, spiritual void there as well, and that's the main thing that we need to seek out. But even in the physical world, even in the non-spiritual world, the work world, we are not being satisfied with the way our lives are going, with the way that our work it works, the way the things work. And this corporate society, it's all about, you're a number. How can we make $400,000 a year off him working here, and we'll pay him $50,000. That's the mentality of the corporate world. How can this guy bring in $400,000 and we'll pay him $50,000? And that kind of way of thinking, and we'll give him a number. He'll be a number, and nobody will ever say they really appreciate him. Nobody will ever. None of the vice presidents or the owner of the company will come and say, "Look, you've done a great job this year. We appreciate it. Here's this for that. Specifically for you." That's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. And that's the reason why I think a lot of men are suffering and feeling neglected, and they never feel complete in what they do in their life. It's just constantly longing for some kind of purpose, both spiritually and physically and mentally and emotionally, even when it comes to just the job. But I'm going to talk about, how can we fix this? And I know a lot of people have done lost you a long time ago, because a lot of people don't like me jabbering on about stuff, but some people may be, interested in this, and it may be helpful. But the only purpose we can really do is, you could take some risk and go out on your own and create something that is more mission-based, and take your gifts and use them in a way, and apply your gifts to some kind of purpose outside of your job until you can do something else on your own. But you're going to have to take some risk to do that. And if you're smart enough, or you've got a certain education or certain skills, you can take it and do your own business, and you can create a mission-based environment of work that's geared toward you, and you can feel a lot more satisfied about that. You could find something outside of work that fulfills that need to complete a mission, to have a purpose. I think that's probably the easiest way, is if you can't find that at work, which most men need that at work, but most men don't get it at work, you need to find something outside of work where you have a higher purpose and a mission that goes, it's not only temporal, but eternal, maybe it's spiritual, but it can also be sometimes just, physical things that we can accomplish for us and our family and other people uh, outside of work that gives us that satisfaction of completing a mission, completing something, feeling satisfied that we've done something special in our lives. And if you don't find something to do that, if you don't find something that gives you purpose, then you're probably going to be an alcoholic. You're probably going to turn to some kind of drug. You're going to need some kind of antidepressant or something like that, because you need to fulfill a mission and you need to feel like that mission is getting completed regularly, or giving yourself new missions that can be completed regularly, because that's the way a man works. He needs a mission, he needs a purpose, and he needs to fulfill it and feel like he's done. You don't want this unending cycle of never finishing the mission. I think that's really what's killing men, is that they just feel like it goes on and it never ends, and there's never no rest. There's never no time of victory. It's always a war and a battle and chaos. Where is the victory? Where is the time of celebration? The time of feeling complete? The time of feeling like, okay, I've completed this. I can rest. I can celebrate. I can sit in victory for a while until the next mission comes. And that's something that we need to find a way to put that into our lives. For my friends and family that are battling struggle with alcohol and any kind of drugs, depression, anger issues as men, frustrations, unsatisfaction with their lives and with their families and their home life. And I deal with these things. I deal with these. I have to think about this. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm talking about this. You got to find a mission, put yourself in that mission, and find a way to find those victories and get victories, even if they're small victories, even if they're little things. The little things turn into big things. And I just want to talk about that a little bit, because I think our culture has really, the reason why there's so much problems in this world is the culture is designed against the way you're supposed to run, the way you emotionally, mentally, and physically are supposed to work as a man. It's not the way the culture works anymore. It goes against everything as a man you're supposed to feel and do. That culture is constantly trying to go against what purpose you have, and tear you down instead of lifting you up and making you feel accomplished. It'll give you just enough satisfaction to where you'll go back into work the next day, just enough pay where you're going to work the next day, just enough necessity to make you go into work the next day. But you're unsatisfied, you're unhappy, you feel like you're not appreciated at home, at work. You're going to feel like you're unsatisfied, unappreciated, like you're not ever good enough. And I know that feeling. So find you a mission, find you a purpose, and work at it. And it's going to take time sometimes to kind of get into that cycle of figuring that out. What is that purpose? And it always needs to involve spiritual things, godly things, the Bible. So I want to make sure I interject that. So no matter what you're doing, even if it is non-spiritual, make the spiritual part a part of that. You can always blend it in with what you're doing, with whether it be hunting, fishing, any kind of mission that you create for yourself, whether it be woodworking or mechanic work, or whether it be helping others, volunteer work. Create a mission, create some kind of something that will make you as a man feel satisfied, and work at it. And it'll take time, but I think it's going to really help. It would really help people if they would do that. But we feel so overwhelmed and so held back, and our time is consumed with these non-mission based, stressful, burden chaos jobs that, take and drain our life out of us, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, just drain the life out of us. And we don't feel like we have nothing left. And we have to figure out a way to get out of that cycle, because it's just never ending. And we have to find a purpose outside of these things. And that's the only way we're going to get out of the desire to try to find an escape through, whether it be smoking, drinking, drugs, all different things, sexual sins, anything that any kind of addiction that we're faced with. We're going to have to find a way to find satisfaction with our lives without turning to those things. So I hope this thought helps you guys. I do think our culture has brought men down to a level where they're seeking all these things, and that's why suicide is through the roof. The numbers are crazy. Drug addiction, alcohol addiction, sexual addictions are through the roof, because men are unsatisfied, and this very culture is doing everything it can to keep men unsatisfied and to drag them down, because none of our jobs are geared to what men really need. And we also live in a multitask world. Men weren't meant to multitask. We were meant for missions. We were meant to stay focused on one thing. Men are not meant to. That women are better at multitasking. I've always said this, and we are a lot better at very focused, concentrated work. And that's why I have to multitask in my job, but I have to focus on one thing at a time. So I focus on one thing, accomplish it, and I'll make a list, and I'll focus on this and accomplishment. Whereas if a woman was doing my job, they'd probably be doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this at the same time. But we don't work that way. And most of our jobs are geared to this multitask, 5 things at once. And that kind of thing, we feel like it's a never-ending mission that's never accomplished, and it really does drag us down. So God bless. Have a great day. Please leave comments below if you was able to suffer through this video, and let me know what you think about these particular thoughts. And let me know if maybe you're going to try to figure out a mission in your life and figure out something where you can start working, fighting against those addictions, the things that are where you're trying to find an escape. If you're going to try to kind of one step at a time, maybe conquer some of those things so that you can start living life to the fullest and living a life of victory in Christ. Let me know if you're willing to make some of these steps, and we'll talk about it. I'd like to talk to somebody about it. I'd like to share some of my struggles, and I would like to hear other people talk about their struggles. So let me know what you think. This channel is about guns, but it's also about He teacheth my hands to war is about the battle that we fight spiritually and physically on a daily basis as Christians or as non-Christians. You're still facing battles, and it's also about the mental battle and the spiritual battles and the emotional battles and the physical battles of this world. And so that's what I want this channel to be a ministry. So I want it to, and I know that the ministry part is not going to be as popular as the gun part, but I'm going to make sure it happens. If you haven't accepted Christ as your Savior, there'll be a track at the end of this video. Please pause it and read it. And if you have any questions about that, please let me know. I always want to be open to winning others to Christ. Just pray about it, think about it, study it. If you're interested, let me know, and we'll be sure to answer any questions you have. God bless. Have a great day.